I was an animating assistant on Beauty and the Beast, and
Yeah.
then by Aladdin, I was a full animator, if I remember right, and got my own scenes.
Have you worked on any movies that people have seen?
Hard to find, really. Good
Deep
luck,
cuts,
everybody.
Tom. Deep cuts. Yeah. Welcome, Tom. Legendary animator Tom Bancroft.
Thank you for that adjective. That was a nice ad.
That was good. Thank you for the generous donation that you made ahead of time to make sure that adjective made it in there.
Right. I want season 1 to be well funded for you. So today we are redesigning each other's OC. Yeah. How crazy is that?
Can't imagine anything going wrong with this. Surely the hours and days and weeks of time that we've each put into our own characters can be easily,
just
solved,
erased,
improved on in a half hour of sketching.
By somebody that doesn't know your character at all.
The less investment you have in the character, the better it's going to be.
Actually, there is some truth to that. I think for people watching, we've all done this thing that's called draw this in your style, right? In a way, yes, we are character designers, both you doing a lot of online art instruction and brick and mortar too. Myself, I have a few books on character design, but I've also teach here in Nashville at Lipscomb University. We are coming from it from a design sensibility. How do we kind of look at these things in a new, fresh way? But it does kind of boil down to draw this in your own style a little bit too, right?
I find that with student stuff where it's like, wait a second, am I just changing this because it's a preference of mine or like the way that I would approach it? Or is it actually something that they need? So I've got your character Bjorn here, Bjorn the Last Unicorn.
Obviously, we've already animated this character, so that's the other cheat here, is that you unfortunately are going to try and redesign a character that if you do better, we're going to have to now reanimate, go back and change everything. So
that's the added pressure on top of this being 30 minutes.
So my quick synopsis is Bjorn is the last unicorn in the world, and he's been living up in the Alps hiding for thousands of years, and he's bored and he decides to come into the world. And when he does that, he meets Becca, who introduced him to the internet. He's never heard of it before, cell phones and the internet, and he sees it through his positive, naive eyes as the most beautiful, wonderful thing ever. And everybody is speaking purity and truth. And so he immediately decides he wants to be the #1 pet influencer in the world. And Becca, who already is the momager of Patty the cat, who is the #1 cat pet influencer, says yes. And so she takes him in and takes on that job. And together they are going to right the wrongs of the internet, I guess you could say. And then, of course, Patty hates Bjorn from day one, Patty the cat, because he's basically taking his job. So let's show my character. I'm doing a supporting character from your cast, which is Quilver,
the rogue, the quilled marksman, he's called. And so he's basically that old myth about porcupines that shoot their quills. He's doing that himself, taking down the storms in Stormfellers. He's coating his quills with either different brews or formulas to sort of create status effects against the storms. He's a gruff guy. He's brash. He's sort of grunting speak. People like Quilver.
He's a little bit
so much so that they had me draw him eating a bagel there in the bottom.
I see that. So here's the question: is that a drawing? Because these are CG models, correct?
They are. Well, one of them that is there in the middle. The rest are all my
This
art.
one here.
Yeah. Fortunately, in Blender, been able to kind of engineer or create some non-photorealistic rendering that emulates in a pretty decent way the sort of the art style that I have in.
Which is more like 2D Toon style of rendering. Is that true?
Yeah.
Kind of.
It's a little bit painterly, a little bit like kind of flat, and just kind of controlled, stylized lighting. So
before I jump in, I'm probably going to play more with expressions on Quilver. I may not do as much of a redesign. I feel like there's a squirrel and a porcupine put together. Is that?
That's how the sausage is made there, Tom. You revealed all my secrets.
But I want to talk a little bit about animation. So as I'm kind of getting into this a little bit later, I might start talking about how to create expressions with that muzzle, because that can be really difficult. Have you done that yet? Have you dived into any dialogue?
A lot of the facial movements for these characters is kind of restricted to certain zones. So obviously he's got a pretty small mouth, and so yeah, he's got a sort of a singular pointy buck tooth in the middle. Otherwise, yeah, not a ton of big, like, wide mouth stuff for him. Sort of the way that, like, if you're looking at a squirrel that's got its mouth all the way open, it's still a very small amount of real estate proportionally.
Now's when we get quiet as we're drawing. I'm starting to play with the shapes a little bit. Again, I'm gonna try and push the porcupine kind of a feel, I guess, and that's what I'm trying to do here. And like I did on the last video that we talked about, try to also push a few shapes here.
Yeah.
And then again, I'm going to lean into expressions and stuff too.
You know, horse anatomy is traditionally one of the easiest things for artists to draw. If you personally struggle with it, I think there's something wrong with you. So this is a real walk in the park for me with Bjorn over here.
I sense sarcasm. Next, we'll do a video about hands. Drawing hands.
Yeah, I was telling Tom earlier about the anime character that's just covered in, I guess they're porcelain hands or something, just to make something that tough to draw.
Well, it must be anime, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why.
That's why.
So, and whatever I draw, you have to remodel now.
It's true, yeah.
Yeah.
I've also got to go through all my finished shots and readjust the rigs. Not as hard, I think, as the reanimating you're gonna have to do to your already uploaded episodes.
Yes. I don't know.
Why do we do this, didn't I?
Causing each other pain. All to put on a show.
I do like how you ended up with a nice bean body shape that is neither Shetland pony nor My Little Pony. Like, you got something that really works here. I think having those limbs that animate, that's a bit of a feat with horse anatomy. Feet, not hands.
I get it.
Yeah. That was just for you, Tom. We'll cut that out. That was just for you.
We can kind of cheat an angle on something or something like that. Kind of like what I'm doing right now. The structure of this, these bottom legs. There's some of this would be a little hard to figure out in a 3D model.
Yeah, I'm torn on Bjorn with more bottom heavy to kind of resolve everything out in sort of an A-frame shape, but I also see him as someone who is like, he's got the confidence to sort of push the mass into the chest a bit. So, the face is a mess. For anybody watching, the face is a mess right now. We'll get back to that.
It's not all done in one fell swoop, is what you're saying.
I've always found, I like your approach to draw overs, and I've always found too, rather than try and get something right on the first try, I almost like having something down that I don't like to work from. It's always easier to work from something. It's like that writing advice of like, don't just read good books, read the bad books so that you can figure out how you'd fix it. I always kind of love that problem solving of, sure, I ingested something I don't like, but it gets the wheels turning on, what would you do as a creator?
I agree. Like, I've told my students that before, where sometimes, like I always do reference, right? And in this case, the reference is just your drawings. But like if I was going to design a character that's like a skunk or something like that, okay, I'm going to pull up real pictures of real skunks and start from that. But I also do sometimes like find clip art skunks and things like that, like just other people's drawings, not even good drawings, but like bad on purpose, because then I go, okay, it gives me another level of analyzing. Like, okay, here's somebody that probably didn't look at a photo of a skunk, let's be honest, but did it really badly. Probably no reference, just sort of threw it out there. And like, what were the mistakes that were made? In a way, that kind of rules out something that I'm not going to do now. I'm like, oh, I don't like how those ears look. It can be part of the process, in all fairness.
It's almost in its own way, it's like a study, like a master study, but in reverse, where you're like, okay, after the amount of experience I've kind of gained over time, I'm able to intuit, some taste and what's the gut reaction to change.
So do you have merchandise of any of these characters yet? It's a little too early.
I do, yeah.
We really?
We just successfully funded a plush for Biko, and we've got cards and pins and stuff through Biko's backpack on Patreon. So there's some Stormfellers fans ahead of the release, which is awesome. This project was one where I sort of designed the characters on my channel sort of week to week. And because of I think partially my own kind of momentum with it, but also the fan reaction was definitely what kind of drove me to kind of prioritize the project overall.
So any problems with Quilver not having pants?
I don't think so. I think there's does anyone say that for Bjorn? I think there's the Donald Duck rule is pretty universal.
I've always been sort of down the middle on that, which means like, okay, as soon as you put a t-shirt on, to me that makes it noticeable that there's no pants. And so I kind of go it's better to go one way or the other. Like just no clothes at all, and like hats don't count. You can still throw a hat on.
No,
right?
Hats are fine.
And get away with it. Okay, so
Quilver's got a little bit of a waistcoat going on that sort of covers any potential shame for him. But
so how did you learn character design? Tell me about that journey.
Exclusively through your books, Tom.
Stop it.
Good
answer,
it's mainly self-taught, mainly through industry jobs. I had a 3D background for a bit. No art school for me. Independent study for the most part. A long road of kind of lots of different disciplines that build up toward character design, and that's kind of how I feel like character design itself is sort of a mix of disciplines anyway, so it's kind of approaching it backwards like that ends up working out. To me, it's sort of it's this nice mix of like artistic and engineering, you know? You're problem solving, you're creating solutions alongside sort of the expression element.
I like that expression on Bjorn. It's cute.
Oh, thank you.
Now you're adding the mullet.
The mullet, yeah. I liked, from what I saw earlier there, the fantail on Quilver is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's big and problematic, I'm sure, in computer animation especially. But I kind of want to go like this bigger shape with it so that you can whip it around and things. So are you thinking that it is those quills could come off his tail as well as his hands and things like that?
I think it's mainly hands for him, and then the tail I was keeping as sort of a follow through shape a little bit in that squirrel, you know, like the as you sort of watch the squirrel kind of balance itself, and it's sort of creating new little S shapes as it goes. That was sort of my design philosophy, but it's in your hands now.
Power.
The power's in your hands. And how about you? What's for folks that are watching from my side of things? What's your what's the 5-minute pitch of how Tom got to be Tom?
You're talking about my career? I guess. Oh, okay. That was a weird way of putting it. I went to CalArts. I was very young, about 1920. I have a twin brother. We went there together. We were always drawing together before that and very competitive and things like that. So I think we kind of helped train each other because of that, for good and for bad. Like it would be a little rough training sometimes on both sides. Sure. There was an internship coming up for Disney, and that was during Little Mermaid. I'm older than I look. So this was 19. I like to always say it like that, as if somebody would be surprised. So this was like back in 1989. They were coming and they were looking for interns and stuff to staff the new Florida studio that they were about to open. We got into that internship. Again, this was during the making of Little Mermaid. They were still in production on Little Mermaid. So we didn't get to work on it, but we got to see it being made. And then we got the job. It was only 9 weeks long, but we got the job. And that meant we were immediately flying to Florida to start our careers as Disney assistant animators. That was the beginning position, which was amazing because I got to then train with one of the animation legends. Mark Henn was my mentor, and he was the animator that I was cleaning up all of his drawings. Very intimidating at 21 years old and never having done it before. This doesn't happen this way anymore, by the way. And then moved up the ladder to become an animator myself by, I think it was Aladdin. I was an animating assistant on Beauty and the Beast, and then by Aladdin I was a full animator, if I remember right, and got my own scenes.
Have you worked on any movies that people have seen? Because those sound like little indie Indie productions.
Yeah, they are kind of hard to find, really. Good
Deep
luck,
cuts,
everybody.
Tom. Deep cuts.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I love your humor.
I appreciate the that as an only child, I definitely would see my friends be better at video games because they would play against each other, like if they had a brother growing up. Whereas I was like, I'm just here on single player, so I can see like the value definitely there of drawing in competition with your brother.
Yeah.
No matter what it does sort of psychologically to you guys. I think
it messed us up psychologically for sure.
The skill side of things.
We're not the better for it. Not as no, mentally, no. I was at Disney for about 12 years and worked on a bunch of films and became supervising animator by the time Mulan rolled around, and I did supervised and designed Mushu the Dragon. And then I left. I went to Big Idea Productions and worked on VeggieTales for a little bit, and until they went bankrupt. I helped them along by asking for too much money, I guess. Long story short, I ended up moving to Nashville about 19 years ago, and started this company that I am doing now, which is Pencilish Animation Studios, and we create 2D, mostly 2D animated shorts, and
that's awesome.
But they're original characters, original stories, and that's kind of hopefully what makes it very similar to you, actually. Is creating our own IP, but we are crowd invested, so they can go to startengine.com and actually invest in our company and kind of come along with the ride of this early stages entertainment company. We're a startup.
That's awesome. I love it. Yeah, I think that's kind of the way that things are going right now, honestly, is not that everyone can create their own indie. It is definitely a privilege, and it's not the solution to the industry. But I think because of where the industry is at and where things online are, it's never been an easier time for someone to hop into that role or take on something that way. So that's really cool. It's cool to see you guys doing it.
It certainly didn't exist when I was younger. That's what's exciting. Is like maybe Disney was slightly easier to get into back in that day. I don't know, probably was.
Right.
There just was fewer people that were striving to do it. So getting there was hard in that you just had to discover it. Like what is the pathway? Now, well, go online. It tells me what should be in the portfolio and blah, blah, blah. Exactly. That didn't really exist because the internet didn't exist. So if you found your way there, and you had had already learned how to sort of train yourself,
right? You
could probably get in, right? But yeah, so everything's harder and easier at the same time.
I think there's maybe some people have a stigma toward indie stuff that it's like, oh, those who can't teach, or that kind of backwards logic where it's like, oh, well, you're indie because you couldn't make it in another field. And it's like, well, this guy is ex-Disney. Like, clearly you were you've been there, you've done that, and this is a chosen path, not just the only one that's in front of you. So
yeah.
How many shows do you guys have, or at least pilots or shorts? Like, I think you have quite a few, right?
Yeah, we do. So video-wise on our channel, go to Pencilish Studios channel. We have 4 different properties that we've kind of launched in animation, and so Bjorn is one, Juju Brain is another, Mind Over Murphy is another, and then Era Lucha. We have a sizzle reel of about a minute of animation for that too. So
that's a little earlier, right?
Yeah,
in production.
It's very much, yeah. I'm doing something radical over here. I'm actually opening his mouth into a wider smile. Not that he smiles probably a whole lot, but he's kind of your Wolverine, right?
A little bit, yeah. A little bit of a Wolverine vibe. There's a shape that you've got in the upper left there that feels a little like a Lion King-esque. It's got a little bit of a...
stretch?
I think almost like a Rafiki drawing, right?
Yeah, I animated young Simba in Lion King, and I hate to say it, but it is kind of popping up in both of these drawings, actually.
That's fine.
Again, because it's it's a muzzled character, and so I immediately start going to some of those shapes. I'm trying to apply it to your character.
I can't believe this drawing by Tom Bancroft looks like it was drawn by Tom Bancroft.
I know.
It's unavoidable, right?
Oh, I like that hair in the front too. He's got like that sexy
A little
long
drape.
mane. Yeah.
It's a little shape break up to the body there. I think I'm creating a couple little tangents with the belly shape, but oh well.
That's good that you talk about tangents, though.
Gotta talk about it all. Can't write on my drawing skills. Gotta find ways to work smarter.
Get that knowledge.
Right. We just we cut to the one that I spend 6 hours on later, as though I'd been drawing it for the 45 minutes. I'm like, oh yeah, wow, look at how productive you were.
We better be doing that. I'm just assuming we're gonna go back and ink and color and finalize everything, right?
Animate a little bit. I want to see that squash and stretch get in between.
Let's see. So I think I'm done. I'm going to leave it at this, I think. So just to kind of go over what my goals at least were.
Yeah.
I didn't change this very much. Like in the last video, I changed your main character a little bit more, but I like this character, by the way. Very nice design. So I mostly just wanted to go, okay, what is my goal here? I'm going to try and add a little more expression and squash and stretch and things. And so what could he look like? And I did change his pupils. I made him a little bit smaller pupils, and I have and by the way, I did that on your other character in the other video. I actually you had dot eyes, and I ended up making a little more traditional cartoon eyes because it's a slight, the animator in me, I'm trying to lean into the animation side of character design too. The top right one there, I'm trying to go, okay, would you have a muzzle that could kind of creep back, for an expression at least, and so as you can see, like if he was going to do dialogue, so it's not just so upfront dialogue. Could you do like a bigger expression if he was either really excited or being sly, and use that muzzle shape and kind of pull it back? Whether or not that's the right direction to go in with this guy, I don't know, but I did want to try it.
I love it. That's great. It's definitely it makes me feel like a more charismatic Quilver, or like almost like, if nothing else, it would be like a cousin of his that's like, charming, right? Like the more not machismo, maybe machismo.
Kind of sly.
I love it. It's great.
Yeah,
and I can see him doing that. I can see him kind of poking fun at Biko with that upper right, like this guy over here, kind of. I like it a lot.
Right. Whatever he says is going to be a little bit negative and grumpy, I assume.
Yeah, I've got I think I'm mainly just kind of pushed a little bottom heavy on Bjorn here.
I like it,
and I love what you've got. And obviously this is not the animatable version of him. I think I just skew towards a more neutral
it's
appeal.
Fun. I know, I like it because I love the smaller muzzle. Again, it's a little bit like what you're doing in your character. But we had designs early on like that. I must admit, there's part of me that misses some of that. We ended up making I think our muzzle's a little like a cow, and we went a little more Warner Brothers, I think, with Bjorn. I really like some of this shape you've created for his face. It's really cool.
Thank you.
It's more horse-like.
I love a good abstract design. I think the original is great. I'm just off in a parallel universe of Bjorn.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I'm sure your final is going to be really cool. You'll probably get up, really render it and put in every single piece of hair, right?
Yeah, fully digitally painted. That's exactly the schedule I've got for the rest of the day.
Right. I've carved out the rest of today to do this drawing.
Exactly.
This has been an amazing time. I hope everybody watching this enjoyed both videos. One's living on Pencilish Studios and our YouTube channel, and one here at yours, Brookes. And so I hope everybody watches both videos as we kind of take on each other's OC and drawing it in our own style. I really enjoy this collab and getting to know you, Brookes. I think we share the same heart of creation and love of characters. No
Absolutely.
Right.
Thank you, Tom.
Little brother.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Bye, everybody.